Paratmanamekam jagadbijamadyam niriham nirakaram onkar vedyam yato jayate palyate yena vishvam tamisham bhaje liyate yatra vishvam. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. My very reverential pranams to Srimad Swami Divyananda Ji Maharaj. My pranams to revered Swami Suvirananda Ji Maharaj. My pranams to revered Swami Nityamuktananda Ji Maharaj. My pranams to all other revered sadhus assembled here. And my pranams to all of you. God in so many forms, Brahman in so many forms, Atman in so many forms. This is not only a phrase, but this is a reality. It is really a matter of great honor and good fortune that somebody gets a chance to come to this extremely sacred place of Cossipore, where Sri Ramakrishna had spent his last days and where some of the very important episodes from his life had taken place. It's really wonderful to see this congregation, lakhs and lakhs of people coming here. You know, just now what Swami Nityamuktananda Ji told, and before that also Swami Divyananda Ji also pointed out a very important thing. Krishna, the one who holds that flute in his hand, I'm talking about Bhagavan Krishna. The very term, the word, Sanskrit term Krishna itself is that one who attracts, one who draws everyone to himself. Ramakrishna is that modern center of attraction, attracted by whom lakhs and millions of people are coming and getting into the spiritual path. Anyhow, I don't want to describe the event which took place here on 1st January 1886. That is well known. But I want to focus upon one very important thing which Sri Ramakrishna had told on that day. What did Sri Ramakrishna bless the devotees with? That one sentence, it's very important. My whole presentation of this event will be from the standpoint of Vedanta. On that day, Sri Ramakrishna touched the devotees and blessed them with one sentence. He said, in Bengali, he said, Tumar Chaitanya ho. Let your spiritual consciousness be awakened. What is this awakening of spiritual consciousness? What is this awakening of spiritual awareness? This is the main thing which we have to focus upon. That event which had taken place on 1st January 1886, it is not one event which had taken place in history. It is an event which is waiting to happen in every human being's life. This awakening of spiritual consciousness is something which is waiting to come into everyone's life. So that is not only an exclusive incident, but it is something which can happen and which should happen and which is the goal of your life and my life. This awakening of the Atman consciousness. On that day, this is going to be the main topic of my discussion in the next 20 minutes. So how are we going to awaken this spiritual consciousness? On that day, this happened to a few devotees through the instrumentality of Sri Ramakrishna. On 1st January 1886, this wonderful awakening of spiritual consciousness or Atman consciousness happened through the instrumentality of Sri Ramakrishna. Then is it not going to happen? So, this is not an exclusive incident that happened on that day. This is something which is going to happen and which is waiting to happen in everybody's life, in your life and in my life. This awakening of Atman consciousness and spiritual consciousness. The main topic of my discussion is going to be, how are we going to awaken this spiritual consciousness? Now, you see, on that day, Sri Ramakrishna had become Kalpataru, like the Kalpavriksha. This idea of Kalpataru or Kalpavriksha is found in our Hindu mythology. We all know that famous incident, a mythical incident of Samudra Manthan, where the ocean was churned, where there was a tug of war going on between the gods and the demons, and they were churning the ocean, and in and through the churning of the ocean, many things came out. And among the many things which came out, we all know, I'm not going into the detail of that story. Among the many things which came out, things like Kamadhenu, the wish-fulfilling cow, came out. Then Airavata, that white elephant, came out. And also this Kalpataru or Kalpavriksha also came out. This is the story of that Samudra Manthan episode in our mythology. So this Kalpataru is the mythical tree, the wish-fulfilling tree. Now the question is, this tree can fulfill all our wishes. Next question is, what actually is this Kalpataru, this Kalpavriksha actually symbolizing? Who is the Kalpataru? Who is that entity, or what is that entity which can fulfill your wishes and my wishes? That is the next question. So, we have to come to that one important point. It is Brahman. It is Brahman associated with Maya, which we know as Ishvara. Ishvara is Kalpataru, Ishvara is Kalpavriksha. Brahman associated with Maya, which is known as Saguna Brahman. Brahman associated with names and forms, which is known as Saguna Brahman, is what is Kalpataru or Kalpavriksha. It is this Saguna Brahman or Ishvara is which is known as Kalpataru or Kalpavriksha. It is Brahman. With names and forms, it is Brahman. Without names and forms, it is Brahman. It is this ultimate reality called Brahman or the Atman, which is the Kalpataru or Kalpavriksha. All our desires and wishes are fulfilled by this source, according to Vedanta, according to the principles of the Upanishads. Now, if you just look into this entity called Ishvara or Kalpataru, this so-called Saguna Brahman or Ishvara, there is another way of understanding it. The another name which we can give to this so-called reality called Ishvara is inexhaustible abundance. I once again repeat this point. Another name which we can give to this so-called Ishvara is inexhaustible abundance. The abundance of Ishvara is inexhaustible. It never gets depleted. It's a very interesting point. We as jivas, we as human beings, we can draw everything that we want from Ishvara. See, everyone here, today just now, a little while ago when I came here, I came across many devotees. Everyone has got some prayer in his mouth. Everyone is wanting something. This is the very important thing. Every human being wants his desires to get fulfilled. And the fulfiller of this desire is one Ishvara whose abundance is inexhaustible or indepletable. It cannot be depleted. Now, this Ishvara, if you just see, it's very interesting. We can have two kinds of wishes. Either we can wish for all worldly things. Our wishing can go in two directions. This is very important for all the devotees to understand. Sri Ramakrishna on that day had blessed us that let our Atman consciousness be awakened. Let our spiritual consciousness be awakened. Are we really wanting that, or are we wanting something else? That is the main question here now. So, our wishing can go in two directions. Either we can wish all the things of this world. Somebody wants money. Somebody wants all the good things of the world. Somebody wants their problems to be solved. And the wish is endless. This is one kind of wishing. Every devotee should remember this act of wishing decides your destiny. What we wish, our destiny is going to be of that kind. You may wish for all worldly things, but that is not going to solve our problems. You may have wealth, you may have pleasures of this world, you may have all good things of life, and yet your problem is never going to come to an end. As Shankaracharya says in his beautiful Guru Stotram, Shariram Surupam Sadaroga Muktam Yashascharu Chitram Dhanam Merutulyam Gururangri Padme Manaschena Lagnam Tatakim 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 Tatakim. What a beautiful statement it is. You may have a healthy body, beautiful body. You may be a very young person. You may have the wealth of the entire world at your feet. You may be a very famous person. Everything is there. But if your mind is not enlightened, if your mind is not surrendered at the feet of the Guru, what is the point? What is the point? What is the point? What is the point? Tatakim, 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 tatakim. As long as we don't realize our true self, no matter what you have in this world, our problems are not going to come to an end. So we should remember one thing. What does Sri Ramakrishna actually stand for? We all claim to be the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. What do you mean by being the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna? What does Sri Ramakrishna actually stand for? It's a very important question. Does Sri Ramakrishna stand for the world, or does Sri Ramakrishna stand for Brahman? If you all read Sri Ramakrishna's gospel very carefully, you can see that every other page of gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he is telling only one thing which the Upanishads had declared ages ago, which Shankaracharya had thundered in one voice. Brahm Satyam Jagat Mithya. Brahman alone is true, the world is Mithya. Every page of gospel of Sri Ramakrishna reverberates with this idea. What is that idea? God alone is real. Everything else is illusory. God alone is real. Everything else is illusory. Nothing else is real. God is the only thing which is real. Now the question is, what do the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna stand for? For the world or for God? What are we going to wish? As I said, our wishing can go in two directions. We are talking about the wish-fulfilling tree. Kalpa Taru, Kalpa Vriksham. This vriksha called Ishvara fulfills all our wishes. It can give you toys to play with, but that is not going to solve our problem. The wheel of birth and death will go on and on and on and on. It is never going to come to an end. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam. Iha samsare khalu dostare, kripaya pare, ahi murare, bhaja govindam, govindam bhaja mudhamate, samprapte sannihite marane, nahi nahi rakshati dunkran karane. Electrifying words. How true it is. As long as we are wishing, see, we are talking about the wish fulfilling tree. As long as we devotees keep on wishing the things of the world, we should understand one thing very clearly. This wheel of punarjanmam, this birth and death, the cycle of birth and death is never going to come to an end. It will never come to an end. So, what do we wish for? The solutions for all worldly problems? You ask for wealth, you ask for pleasures, you can do that. Sri Ramakrishna will give it. But does Sri Ramakrishna really stand for that? That is the one big question. I always say this point, What does Sri Ramakrishna actually stand for? Every evening we sing the Arati in our temples. I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit cold and cough. That's why this interruption is happening. Every evening we sing this Arati in our temples. What are the first three words of this Arati? Khandana Bhava Bandhana. Sri Ramakrishna stands for this and this alone. Bhava Bandhana Khandana. Putting an end to this bondage of worldliness. There is no other meaning to this personality. He stands for God and God alone, Brahman and Brahman alone, nothing else. This awakening of the Brahman consciousness, Atman consciousness, is the very goal of human life. Now the question is, how do we do that? Here comes a very important, let me just, mantra in the Kathopanishad. Very important thing. Sri Ramakrishna's teachings are all nothing but the echoes of the Upanishads. He is the very Upanishad Murti, Veda Murti. So what is that verse in the Kathopanishad where the Rishi says, he says, Nayam Atma pravachanena labhyaha na medhaya na bahuna shrutena yamaiveshe vranute tena labhyaha tasyesha atma vivrunute tanum swam. You might have heard, it's a very famous verse. The question is, my question was in the beginning, how is our spiritual consciousness going to be awakened? On 1st January 1886, through the instrumentality of Sri Ramakrishna, a few people's spiritual consciousness was awakened. Is it not going to happen today? It will happen today, it will happen tomorrow, it is going to happen at all points of time, provided we do the right thing. It can happen to everybody. The Upanishads have shown us the way, long back. What is the way? That Rishi of the Upanishad, Kathopanishad says, this Atman consciousness it is not going to be awakened by pravachana. Nayam Atma pravachanena labhyaha. Pravachana means studying of scriptures. It is not going to be attained by medha, mere by intellectual activities. Na bahuna shrutena, not even by listening to lectures. You see, we are fond of listening to lectures after lectures after lectures. This is going on. For how many years we have been listening to lectures, but is something really happening? It's a big question. What the Upanishad wants to say is that mere intellectual exercise is not going to make this awakening of spiritual consciousness possible. Something else is needed. If this so-called study of the scriptures and listening to pravachanam and all, if it is not backed by one factor, I repeat, I emphasize this one factor. This one factor is extremely important. What is that one factor? Tyaga, Vairagya. Without Tyaga and Vairagya, nothing is going to happen in spiritual life. And this personality about whom we are talking today, he was the very emperor of Tyaga and Vairagya. See, I'm just talking to you from the standpoint of bhaktas. What do you mean by being the bhakta of Sri Ramakrishna? The devotee of Sri Ramakrishna has to imbibe the spirit of Vairagya and Tyaga. Without Tyaga and Vairagya, this awakening of spiritual consciousness is not going to happen. You may do no matter whatever you do it on the surface, but the spiritual consciousness is not going to be awakened. So that verse in the Kathopanishad says, so how is this Atman consciousness awakened? A very beautiful line. Yameva esha vrunute tena labhyaha. When the seeker of truth, Shankaracharya says in his commentary, now see, we are talking about awakening. Chaitanya hok, tumar Chaitanya hok. How is this Chaitanya going to be awakened? It can be awakened when you pray for, when you wish for Chaitanya and Chaitanya alone. The Upanishad says, when you do not wish anything for worldly things, when you wish for Atman and Atman alone, in and through that one-pointed wishing, in and through that one-pointed prarthana, Shankaracharya says, prarthayate, in and through that one-pointed vyakulata, this Atman consciousness can be awakened, then Atman becomes revealed to that person. So the first condition, I would say here, Sri Ramakrishna's this blessing, Tumar Chaitanya ho. Let your spiritual consciousness or Atman consciousness be awakened. Wonderful. How is it going to be awakened? The first condition is we have to become desireless. The biggest boon, the biggest blessing that comes into the human life is desirelessness. So we have to wish for putting an end to all worldly kind of wishing. Once again, I repeat this point. The only thing that we have to pray to Sri Ramakrishna is to put an end to all our worldly desires. As long as you have worldly desires, this awakening of spiritual consciousness is not going to happen. It is impossible. It's impossible. So, the main secret of this awakening of spiritual consciousness lies in desirelessness. So, what we have to pray to Sri Ramakrishna is to make us desireless. So, this is the great message which we find. And Sri Ramakrishna is the very embodiment of this. We know Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi, what she has asked us to pray for. She has told us, Sharda Devi has told us, the only thing that we should be praying for is what? To make us desireless, to make us nirvasana. When we become nirvasana, automatically you will see that this Atman consciousness or spiritual consciousness can be awakened. And when this spiritual consciousness awakens, we will begin to see God in everybody. This is what the Upanishad teaches. Sri Ramakrishna is giving us the blessing of awakening the spiritual consciousness. And when this spiritual consciousness awakens, you see, my dear devotees, remember one point, our very idea of God changes. God not as limited to one form, God not limited to one place. We begin to see God in every form. Every man is divine, every woman is divine. It is all God in so many forms. This is Saguna Brahman. Upanishads teach us this is Saguna Brahman. What else? Where else is God? This very idea is echoed by Swami Vivekananda when he said, Bahurupe samukhe tumar chhadiye khotaye khuji cho Ishwar. God is standing before you in so many forms, living this God. Which God are you searching for? That is the question. Upanishads. Our very idea and vision of God changes when the real spiritual consciousness awakens. We will begin to see everything as divine. This is the importance of awakening of the spiritual consciousness, which happens through a special way. It is not an exclusive event which took place on 1st January 1886. It is something which is waiting to happen in your life, in my life, in everybody's life. It is only a matter of time. If you do the right thing, and the right thing to do is stop wishing for all worldly things. Wish for God and God alone. Pray for God and God alone. When you one-pointedly wish for God and God alone, you see this Atman consciousness will become awakened. Let us pray to Sri Ramakrishna that may our hearts be desireless, free from all worldly desires, free from all defects. Let us discover our purity, our divinity, and let that Ishvara make us see the divinity in everybody. Then the real life starts when we begin to see God in everyone. Thank you so much.